Kim Jong-un traveled 2.5 days to meet President Trump for the upcoming summit in Vietnam. Meanwhile, President Trump's travel time was 2.5 buckets of KFC.
Michael Cohen is scheduled to testify tomorrow in front of the House Oversight Committee in a highly anticipated public hearing that will be broadcast live. And it will be capped off by a duet between Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga.
The price of avocados, olives, and butter are up because fat is in fashion. In which case, it might be time for Chris Christie to make his big comeback.
Producers say that Jussie Smollett will not appear in the final episodes of this season's Empire. Well, that leaves plenty of free time for him to plan his next fake attack.
And finally, President Trump has announced plans for a July 4th celebration at the Lincoln Memorial to celebrate America on July 4th. He's also announced an annual gift-giving celebration on December 25th, and that the fourth Thursday of November will be a day where friends and family gather together over a joyous feast, a day to give thanks, a day that will heretofore be known as Give Thanksing. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, welcome to the Trump Report. I think even if I didn't have a little nasally thing going, I don't have a good Trump impression. My impression
That was a great impression.
My impression of Trump is of Trump being sick with a head cold.
That was a great impression, except for the word heretofore.
Yeah, that's true.
Too big of a word.
Heretofore. Yeah, that's true. Well, I should have changed it to 2x4. Anyway, I'm Christian Bladt, joined as always by Tamara Brown.
Hello.
And of course, Scott Moore.
Hey, guys.
On the far end of the desk. Now, we alluded to it just there at the top of the show. The Michael Cohen testimony is scheduled to begin tomorrow at 10 a.m.
CNN has a countdown clock going.
Well, CNN has a countdown clock to their countdown clocks to let you know when their countdown clock is going to start.
So when Wolf Blitzer's going to sneeze.
That's true. And I think that, so that's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So we live out, that's 10 a.m. DC time. So we live out here on the West Coast. So the question is, Scott, 7 a.m. You're going to be there with some early morning popcorn, just ready to watch. And maybe, speaking of countdown clocks, just waiting to see if the impeachment clock moves. Are those your big plans for tomorrow, the Cohen testimony?
Yes, indeed. I don't know if it'll be 7. I might, you might
record. You might time shift the viewing a little bit. Are you dedicated to the Republic or not? I don't understand what's wrong with you.
I'm dedicated to my sleep.
Yeah, that's true.
He's running an office. He's running an office Michael Cohen testimony pool where if
he should have done
if
that.
he admits if Trump said something racist in the second quarter, then then you would win. We all have our tables.
We have our bingo
little squares.
Bingo squares all planned out.
Well, so we have the testimony, and it's coming. And the White House was very quick to, go figure, Tamara. Sarah Sanders doing her job, saying, don't forget that this guy's a liar. He's going to tell you some more lies. And I should know because I lie for a living. Now, that's not actually what she said, but she might as well have said it, right?
You know it.
Yeah. So what do we think collectively? What do we think we're going to get tomorrow? We should do like a little show bingo right here. Things that we hope we hear. I'll start with you, Scott.
Well, you know what? I honestly don't think we're going to hear as much as we'd like because this is the public forum. So, they're having 2 closed door sessions. I believe that there's going to be a lot of things that he won't say. But at the same time, I think the things that he won't say or he'll kind of push back on a little bit will be the ones that we'll have to really kind of think about of okay, why is he not saying things? Because obviously if he did, it would be a lot more incriminating.
Right, and my understanding is he's actually not allowed to talk about Russia because that's specifically covered. So, but he's like, oh, that's fine. That's just a couple hours out of my testimony. I guess there's a lot of Stormy Daniels stuff. And, who knows? Look, if he's willing to pay off one woman who he'll call horse-faced, there's probably others. We'll find out. And I don't know. What do you think, Tamara? You think Michael Cohen, does he think he knows anything that he hasn't already told us, though?
I think he knows things, but I don't think he has. I don't think there's going to be anything satisfying.
Right.
Every single every single time we've had so many opportunities when the Democrats are going, oh, here we go, here it is, here's when the bomb's gonna drop, and it's always so lackluster. It's always like, I guess I know of the same amount of stuff that I basically knew before this happened. He's going to say there were meetings. He's going to say that there were meetings that he was not present in, but he assumes that the topic was this. I would really like for, I don't know, I don't care. I don't really care about anything involving Stormy Daniels. I have a feeling that he's going to say Trump has said some incredibly racist things, but I have no tape or anything to put, to prove that in any way. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know how much tape there is of him as president saying things. I think that, we can question his intelligence level. Sure, maybe he doesn't use the word heretofore. But I think, I think that, the American voters didn't seem to take much away from the Access Hollywood, tape.
Right.
Something that I think we're not calling Pussygate, but we could. We probably shouldn't. But, it's probably what he...
But the American people would, if a tape like that where he said something racist, I do feel it would be taken...
That's the point I was going to make. I think he learned from that, okay, oh, wow, I'm president now. Hey, I kind of remember that time I was talking to Billy Bush and I thought we were off the record. Let me not do that. Now, granted, the president is probably recorded a lot of the time, and as I think I said last week, sometimes by Omarosa. And I don't know. I'm just going to guess if there's one time he's not going to use a racial slur, it's going to probably be talking to Omarosa. You probably also expect that she might be recording you anytime you talk to her. So I'm not going to say for a second that I would have any reason to think that, he's never talked like that in his life. I just think he's probably a lot more cautious as president. And I don't know that there are recordings of it. But yeah, Michael Cohen is probably going to say, yeah, I've heard that these things have happened. I can't prove any of it. But why wouldn't you trust me? I mean, I'm just going to jail for lying. So who's more trustworthy than me? So it's, I think that we'll have some of it to talk about next week, but I think that there won't be as much to digest as maybe we hope. But
right.
I specifically thought of you, Scott, when I saw the LA Times headline, and I have it here. In echoes of Watergate, Trump's ex-lawyer is expected to tell all to the House committee. So obviously, that's one of the things you talk about a lot in relation to the Mueller investigation. Watergate took a long time.
It did. And there are a lot of similarities in that sense. And like we've talked about previously, it's again, is there more of a cover-up here than actual crimes? And was what the president's been trying to do all this time has been more of the cover-up to prevent things from coming out that, again, could have been something, maybe not a huge deal of some of these things, but now they're going to turn into a bigger deal because he's denied and covered up. And I think that's what's going to be the bigger things that come out when the investigation finally does wrap.
And both scandals involve something called deep throat, so there's really a lot you can take from there.
How do you mean?
Well, that was an informant. I don't know if you saw All the King's Men. All the President's Men was the name of the movie. But that was what was that guy's name?
Mark Felt.
Mark Felt, yeah. I almost called him Mark Rich, and I'm like, that's the wrong guy. That's the guy that Clinton pardoned. But probably something he likes too. Anyway, so let us know, everybody in the chat. Where are you going to watch tomorrow? I have a lot of friends who live and work in Washington, D.C., and my friend Vanessa, who's a publicist there, she actually tweeted about how there are a lot of bars are going to have viewing parties and specials. And she's like, really? I know, there are a lot of crazy people in D.C., but who's going to show up for that? I'm like, an excuse to drink at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, right?
It's like St. Patrick's Day in February.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to wait the 3 weeks. I don't know. I mean, I think, it's one of those things, Americans don't really care about soccer, but it's like, bars are, that Irish pub down the street is going to open at 9 a.m. to show the World Cup. And, of course, they're serving beer.
Yeah.
So who doesn't want to get shit-faced on their way to work?
Yep.
So, I don't know. I think that'll be kind of an interesting thing to see. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think that we're going to get a lot out of it. But
Yeah, I agree because, like you were saying, they have the closed. If there wasn't the closed door thing, and maybe there was a little bit more of him being like, "Okay, I have nothing else to lose," we might have heard something a little more interesting. But again, I think overall it's going to be a lot of pushback, and maybe we'll get little inklings of things here and there, but it's not going to be a full force. Like you said, like this big bombshell is going to come out in the public hearing tomorrow that nobody doesn't either already know about through the closed door sessions, or we'll find out in the investigation that he's going to actually say anything.
He's saying he's going to provide evidence, but I think his evidence is just going to be the testimony of a guy who's on his way to jail, and so it's like, I don't know,
his charts,
a former best friend, a jilted lover, it's all like, oh, let me tell you about this guy.
Best case scenario is that there will be some funny, like during the Kavanaugh hearings when everybody was tweeting beer, and I made this Photoshop of him in front of a pyramid of beer cans and like things like that, like whatever. Like I don't see any like bombshell coming out, but I'm hoping that he'll make some sort of like verbal slip or something that everybody's gonna the Twitter sphere is gonna latch on to,
some kind of reference or some kind of crazy chart. That's what I'm hoping for.
We're hoping for good memes.
Yes.
Is what we're
Good
hoping
memes.
to take away from
really-
this. Yeah,
That's really what it's about.
I think that's the best we can hope for.
I think but I honestly think there's going to be some really good ones, so stay tuned for that. Well, let's talk about the latest on the border. There's a lot of questions about math, which has never been a strong suit for me. But the Democrats in the House are going to have a vote on, basically saying, like, no, you don't get to declare the state of emergency and allocate all these funds. And then I guess within, I think I read it was 18 days, the Senate will have to do something as well. And there's starting to be concerns that there wouldn't be the 60 votes they need. And here's the thing. So if there aren't the 60 votes in the Senate, it still goes to Trump's desk and he can veto it. Now, he hasn't vetoed anything yet. And I don't know. I think for him, it's like, oh, great. This is the thing that I get to veto for the first time. He's like, yeah, I didn't want to have to veto things, but, if these Senate Republicans aren't going to really step up, I guess they don't care about your safety, America. So that fortunately, your favorite president, which he's using a lot, by the way, and I don't know, Trump supporters, he's probably not your favorite president. You might adore him. You're going to tell me you like him more than Reagan? I'm just guessing. It's just a gut reaction. And, I'm a Zachary Taylor guy. I know that Scott's Miller Fillmore.
Definitely.
And, unfortunately for
I'm a pokehead.
Well, yeah, you would have been a McKinley guy, but ouch.
You're Garfield.
Yeah. Well, I always thought Garfield was great.
Yeah.
The only president that hates Mondays and loves lasagna. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I said it out loud. No problem. Anyway, so, Scott, what do you think about... it's kind of all for show, though. So even if the Senate doesn't uphold this emergency declaration, he's still going to veto it, right?
Well, I mean, he could. The only thing is the number of people that have to come back to actually override the veto, and that's where again you're not going to have the numbers to override the veto.
Yeah, so the veto would actually be like, okay, it doesn't matter, my thing's going to stand, my declaration's going to stand.
Right, but then you could go back and Congress could override it if they had enough votes and say, no, sorry, you can't do this, and we've overridden the veto, and then therefore. They wouldn't be able to keep the emergency declaration in that sense.
Does the House override the veto? Does the Senate, or do they both have to do it?
Both. You have to have the numbers.
Right. So they can have the numbers in the House, but they won't have the numbers in the Senate to override the veto.
Right, and that's the problem, which again goes back to the impeachment thing, which we've talked about too. It's you get the impeachment to go through the House, so no problem, but again, it'll be back to the Senate, getting the 67 votes in there to be able to, have him booted from office.
Which,
so
as we've talked about before, it was the same thing when Republicans had the House but not the Senate. There was all these motions like, yep, we're all voting to repeal Obamacare, and then the Senate was like, no, go screw yourselves.
Yeah,
and that was kind of the end of it. So just sort of. It's just the little pong game going back and forth.
But I do think if you look at the states with some of the Republicans that are likely, I think Tom Tillis actually just went on the record today, North Carolina.
Murkowski, Susan Collins, and what's his name?
Tom Tillis, in North Carolina. Which is surprising because North Carolina is even a little bit more pro-Trump than even some of the other states where you might think you would have some like Georgia, maybe Iowa, couple other states that might say, overturn the emergency declaration. But the point is that you have enough people in those states that are very opposed, and that does cut across some Republicans as well, to the emergency declaration. And so it gives some of these senators the breathing room to be able to say, no, we're not going to support this as well, because some of these senators will be up for re-election as well next year. And so they're now going to have to really, put their self out there, because they're going to be up for re-election. And if it is enough to where, I mean, again, this is not really how it works out, but if you were to look at Trump's approval ratings in every state and you based it on the share of voting that he would get, he would lose by a landslide at this moment in time. Of course, it doesn't always work out that way, as we saw in 2016. But the point is that if some of these Republican senators are feeling that he's going to be a threat to drag them down, and there's enough opposition there, they're, of course, going to protect themselves over him any day. So that's where you might see some more movement with the senators to say, no, we're not going to support this.
Also, because Tillis made a New York Times op-ed where he said the reason that he is voting with the Democrats is not because he agrees with their, security plan. It's that he has to curb, and I think more Republicans need to follow behind him, that he needs to curb the presidential abuse of the emergency declaration, because should we have a Democratic president next, let's say President Sanders wants to declare a national emergency for against guns, or health, Medicare for all, or climate change, or anything that these Republicans are against. We can't set the precedent that the president can just declare an emergency declaration. And then even Mitch McConnell today, they asked him, is this legal? And he was like, well, we're still trying to figure that out, which basically means no, an emergency declaration is not legal.
Right. And you can see a lot of Republicans don't even want to say yes, that it's 100% they should do that. And you're right, because a lot of them want to say no as well, because they don't want to see a future Democrat do the same thing for things that they don't agree with.
Sorry, I had a mini stroke when you said President Sanders, but I'm back now. I heard everything. I just couldn't move. But no, I think that it's a valid point, and it's the sort of thing that I think that, there are probably more Republicans who feel that way. It's just Tillis is the only one who's actually saying it, and he's up for re-election next year. So obviously that's why he's saying it.
Right, and that's what I was saying too. Is like a lot of people would have an issue with that.
There's some other interesting cases, I guess, and we won't spend too much time on this. But when you have somebody like Martha McSally who's going to have to run again, and what's a bigger issue for Southern Arizona at least than the border? And I feel like it's almost like you can't win there, because you're going to have a huge segment of the population that's like, yeah, we don't want anything to do with that wall. But then you do also have, the other. I don't know. I feel like Arizona has plenty of people who also are like, no, you have to. So I feel like however she votes, she's going to probably lose next year.
Right. I mean, because she lost last year. So
yeah.
And,
Which, how great is that? When you lose an election, but then you kind of get it anyway? Yeah. Sign me up for that. Anyway, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll see where that's going. But our favorite president, I love how often he's using it now, by the way. I don't know who gave him that idea for branding, but every time he fits it in there. He's going to obviously it's going to be such a major issue. So Kim Jong-un has arrived in Vietnam, and President Trump is expected there. Only 50 years late. Thank you.
I know, it's like those poor bone spurs. I hope they don't flare up. Just
actually,
thinking about it.
It's funny you mention that, because now that reminds me. I saw something in the chat. Let's see, where was it? Caroline Spencer. Do you think Trump will wake up saying good morning? Do you think Trump will wake up saying good morning, Vietnam, while he's there, or will his bone spurs affect him too much? No, I think he'll be like, oh, it's really nice here. They have the best Vietnamese food here. Who knew? But they also have McDonald's.
They do have McDonald's, yeah.
So,
and Starbucks. And, yeah.
Do you think that he's going to think, Tamara, this is an important question for you. Do you think that he thinks that Vietnamese food is a McDonald's in Vietnam? You think he's just like, wow, this is...
I mean, he's not wrong if he does think that.
Yeah. No, he's just like, this is great. I'm just going to eat here every day. So... Kim Jong-un, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think that there is something... You can give Trump credit because he's sitting down with someone that, the head of North Korea is not someone that a U.S. president has met with. But, there's always no shortage of information. I was reading an article today about the 428 people that we know of, that people who have defected or just, fled North Korea just have testified on the record. We know the 428 people that he's been responsible for brutally murdering. Not, I guess it's not directly responsible. He had somebody do it for him. And sometimes it was for, according to an article that I read, I do believe it was from Fox News, but it said that sometimes if you were slouching at an event that he was at, that's something that could get you thrown in jail or killed. And, people should actually have more respect when the supreme leader is there. That'll teach you. So something to be thought of there. So obviously we're meeting with this guy, and there's something to be said for let's see what's going on here. But let's not forget, he's not just a bad guy. He doesn't just have a bad haircut. He's not just an amazing basketball superstar, as has been reported by North Korean state media. He's a terrible guy. Do you think, I'll ask Scott first, do you think that he's somebody that the President of the United States should meet with anywhere?
No. And again, the reason why why he's doing this is because he thinks either he's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize or he's going to somehow do something that nobody else had done before, because rightfully so, they weren't going to negotiate with him. Because again, it's never going to happen to where they think that they're going to get rid of their nuclear weapons. The reason why they would never do that is because that's the one thing that keeps them at least somewhat protected. And there has to be enough trust on both sides to be able to do something like that. And I just do not believe, especially with China and the other players involved there, are going to feel like, oh yeah, go ahead and acquiesce and get rid of your nuclear weapons and whatever else. Now, granted, the only thing I could say that could be something like that is because going to Vietnam, as a fellow communist country that has opened themselves up a lot more, and I was just there in December, and it was pretty impressive. They do have an incredible economic growth rate right now, 6, 7, 8%. And you can see they've opened up the doors a lot to capitalist type economy by still keeping more of the communist political setup. But it was amazing to see all the beach resorts and the offices and shops and malls and brand new everything being built left and right. That it could be something to him if he feels that he can get those sanctions lifted, is the only thing that I can think that might help him to be able to kind of maybe come a little bit over to what we want to offer in some of these deals, and maybe feel that he would, because he sees how well
Kim Jong-un would want to make a mall in North Korea.
Yeah, he would want to be able to see how well the economy is doing in Vietnam, in a fellow communist country with more of an open door policy to capitalist mentality, and that it's open now with the U.S., it's open to other places, and to still see that they've kept their ideology, but they've at least on an economic side have opened their doors a little bit more open. And that's the only thing I can think of that might open his eyes a little bit more to helping to do a deal with the U.S. to be able to get the sanctions lessened. But I also think that Trump is a little bit naive, not having a political or government background or worked in an area where he understands how this works. And I don't think that North Korea is going to just give up their nuclear weapons, because that's their one thing that keeps them protected.
That's their only leverage.
Right, that keeps them protected there. And they've been able to manage thus far with these punishing sanctions for all these years, and they've been able to keep somewhat of a stability there. So I have a hard time to believe that all of a sudden now they're going to do this. And you've seen that. You've seen that Trump is now not trying to say, oh, we're going to have the best deal ever. And, he's really kind of brought that down a little bit, because I think that the expectations need to be brought down of knowing that this is a long-term thing. This doesn't happen overnight, and it would still be continuing well after he's long out of office.
Right, and there's something very symbolic about it being in Vietnam, which I think is a place that not long ago people wouldn't have imagined being like that, being something that being a place that the American president would visit. I mean, I remember a joke in Back to the Future 2 is they're in the future, and it's a big ad for Surf Vietnam, and there's like a great laugh. There was also a great laugh about the Cubs winning the World Series. Yes. So, all this, that's crazy stuff for the future. So the idea that Vietnam could turn around like that is, I don't know. I don't think that's the way that Kim Jong-un sees it. It's probably just more like, oh, I want all this stuff inside my compound. I don't want my people to have it, but I definitely want a KFC inside of a Taco Bell, inside of a Pizza Hut. But who doesn't?
Right. I mean, that's the dream for everyone.
Tamara, the first question is, if, say you were performing a set at the Improv in Pyongyang and you saw that,
Your
that
lipstick
the Supreme Leader was there in the audience, but you noticed that the comedian going on after you was slouching backstage, would you have him killed so you got 5 more minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know where you stood. I don't know.
I will be the last comic standing.
which is probably a little bit more of a literal explanation when you do it there. So the idea, Tamara, that President Trump is sitting down with him. Tell me what you think about that, and then also the idea that Trump has said like, we'd love to have you, visit the White House, Camp David, Mar-a-Lago. We'll talk. But the idea that he might invite him to come to our country at some point. Your thoughts on both of those?
This President Trump does not have a clue as to the scope. It seems like of what Kim Jong-un has done, or if he does, is he just that heartless? He doesn't. Trump doesn't seem to understand that other leaders have not met with him in retaliation of all of the human rights violations of murder and rape and starvation and all of these things that Kim Jong-un has done to his own people. And that is why leaders have not met with him. Trump seems to think leaders have not met with him because he wouldn't agree to it with anybody but him. And in their summit, he's not going to bring up any sort of human rights violations. He's not going to, hold Kim Jong-un's feet to the fire in that capacity at all. I mean, I don't even understand what they could possibly talk about, because two people who are only functioning on flattery, it's like, well, then why are you even meeting if you're just going to compliment each other? And then I don't know if you're right and the purpose is for Kim Jong-un to see Singapore, and are they in Singapore?
Vietnam.
They're going to be in Vietnam.
Vietnam. If they're in, see what Vietnam is like and how more modern and commercial, like you're saying, a communist country could be, then I guess they're meeting because Trump wants to make sure he gets a Trump Tower in there and this business, and that opens up a golf course and things like that. I mean, I suppose that's what he's hoping to establish, but other than that, like I don't understand what they could possibly. I mean, no, I guess I do. And then if nothing else, it's just the media show of, that's all he wants.
Right,
he just
exactly.
wants
The adoration, and like, oh, look at what I did. No other president would do this, and I did this, and yeah.
That's really the only. There's no real point to this meeting whatsoever. There's nothing that's going to be accomplished. There's nothing that's going to be established.
I mean, unless he wants to take poiners from Kim Jong-un. I mean, it'd just be like
hairstyle tips.
No, the rape is off the table, but tell me about the murders and the starvation. How does that work? I mean, maybe he's just like, how do you make that work? I want to know more. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What kind of insights do we get from when there's a meeting? There'll probably be a closed-door portion. But the Q&A will be great because they'll... Oh, just what if anybody asks Trump, how does it feel to finally be in Vietnam? Like, and is he smart enough to know what you're asking if you say it in that
he
way?
wouldn't get it.
He's like,
it's a beautiful country.
This is the first time I've been here. We definitely want to have a Trump Tower. That's a great idea. He'll thank you directly for that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's... I guess that's what happens when your former best friend lawyer is going to be testifying to you being a criminal. That's when you go to Vietnam.
Yeah, that's when you go to the other side
Exactly.
of the world to get away from it.
That's what this summit is for.
And, just at an earlier point in your life, when you're supposed to go to Vietnam, you find a lawyer that can figure out a way to get you out of it. Well, it's the circle of life, as it were. Also, as we mentioned in the beginning, we'll only touch on this for a moment, is President Trump, he had talked about the big parade they were going to have. He talked about that last year. And I think that plan has been adapted to a big July 4th bash in Washington, D.C. at the Lincoln Memorial. I don't know about you guys. I have been to a big bash on the 4th of July at the Lincoln Memorial. There are fireworks. Now, the president has not spoken there before, but that was the joke that I made. They do this every year.
Right.
So what's the difference? That you're going to be there? And is that going to make people want to stay home? Maybe because people don't like him, but then also just like the security, you know. I mean, it was the times that I went was actually one of them was post 9/11, but it was mostly pre 9/11, so it was fine, you know. It would just walk right up, you know. Strap on your suicide vest. Nobody cares. Now I think that they're actually going to frisk you for that, so be careful. But I think that I don't know. I mean, this is just I don't know. I guess he's just trying to slap his ride on the coattails of the 4th of July. He's like, well, there's going to be fireworks anyway, so why don't you let me speak?
Yeah,
I can't
take credit.
I can't wait for the humiliation of like the third best Creedence Clearwater cover band is going to be the big entertainment of the day, because it's not like you're going to get Beyonce or Kendrick Lamar or Lady Gaga or Taylor Swift. You're not going to get anybody would actually want to see. So
I'm sorry, have you not heard of the Motor City Madman, Mr. Ted Nugent?
Oh, you're
have
right.
you not heard of another guy from the Michigan?
Corrected.
Mr. Kid Rock? Hey, what is it with the musicians from Michigan that they all like?
If
this guy?
both of them agree to bathe in the reflecting pool publicly for all of us to witness to make sure that it actually does happen, then maybe there's a reason to tune in.
I think that there's also some country artists that have performed for President Trump before. It's like, I feel like there's a country duo called Big and Rich. Big is not a fan, but I think Rich is. I don't know enough about the music.
It was like half the group will then show up and perform.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Rich will be there.
Rich. Where's Big?
He couldn't make it tonight.
He was a Hillary guy. No, just kidding. He was a Bernie bro. I don't know. I just think it's, yet another example of, just managing expectations. He wanted to do this big parade. Somebody crunched the numbers. It was like,
not gonna happen.
Just talk. We'll set up a podium at the Lincoln Memorial. There's already security there. It's fine.
They're already doing the 4th of July there, so it's not going to be
We'll
much
put
of a
that
budget.
usual group of people behind you so
Yep.
that there's women for Trump holding up
We'll
signs
get
and the
those
one black
extras.
guy right behind you cheering.
Yeah, the one.
Yep.
All right. Well, let us know if you plan on going to the Lincoln Memorial.
I just know what I'm not going to be doing now on 4th of July, but
Well, if you go on the other side, you go on the Washington Monument side,
Yeah.
you'll maybe be away from some of it. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was Amazon. Yeah. Where's my Blu-ray for Green Book? It's not a no. What I want to talk about with Amazon is they're apparently not going to build this headquarters in New York anymore, and this was a big issue for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but it was also a big issue for a lot of people. Now, the way I understand it, that was 25,000 jobs in Long Island City. This is a fairly local issue, but it's sort of more of a testament to this idea that like a big business will come in, create those jobs, and then the businesses around there. My understanding is that the restaurants there aren't open at lunchtime because no one works there. So the economic impact would have been about 100,000 jobs, and then I guess the trade-off is anywhere Amazon goes, they don't pay taxes. I don't know. I think that the taxes are Jeff Bezos's payment to his soon-to-be ex-wife. I think that that's why he can't pay taxes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't follow the tax law. This is why we need Chelsea. She knows the tax law better than I do. I'm pretty sure I'm right though. So this is more just a personal opinion thing. What do you think about that, Tamara? Let me ask you first. And again, we don't live there, so it wouldn't have directly impacted us. Do you understand why there were enough people in New York who were like, yeah, we don't want this? And then at the same time, people who actually lived there were like, maybe I could actually get a job there. What do you think? I mean, about it's,
I think there's a little bit more awareness now of this massive, terrifying monopoly that Amazon has on things, and people feeling them creep into their lives in all of these respects. I think that people are very slowly getting creeped out by Amazon and are trying to curb its reach. And the fact that there's so many articles about Jeff Bezos not paying taxes now, he's like, who likes this guy? Who would? And I'll say this. I live in an apartment where we don't have like a buzzer or anything, so it's very hard for me to get packages. So I have never, maybe once, maybe twice in the last 15 years, ordered something from Amazon. But Amazon...
was it stolen both times, by the way?
I think it was, yes.
I only say that because
Yeah.
my sister-in-law, where she lives in Hollywood, and not in a glamorous way. People who actually live out here know what it means when you
Yeah.
say you live in
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Her apartment, packages get stolen all the time. So now they come to our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. I would ship things to like wherever I was working anyway, that being said, being like the one person who does not use Amazon ever, I'm also the only person I know who doesn't have like targeted ads and so many people say that like, oh, it's so weird. I was just talking about this thing and then this thing popped up on my Facebook and then this thing was suggested. I got this weird email about this thing and I'm like, that does not happen to me. Could that be connected to the fact that I do not shop?
You know, it's so
at
weird. That
Amazon?
thing that I asked Alexa about, I have an ad on my Facebook for
Exactly.
that. Huh? Would you like to buy this album? Funny thing you said that you're not being targeted. You just said in front of a microphone, you used the word curb. And Jeff Bezos wants to know, would you be interested in buying a season of Curb Your Enthusiasm? So you see, that's what happens. They're listening to everything. So you think just because it's Amazon, what if it was another big company that it would have been the same deal, same number of jobs, but they also wouldn't have paid taxes? Is it because it's Amazon? Or do you think like, no, you could probably pay some taxes, maybe give them a break so they go to New York versus Kentucky? I'm just trying to think of somewhere where they would be like, oh yeah, just come here, no taxes or whatever. I don't know. Is it because it's Amazon?
That's a good question.
I can't think
I
of
think
another
it is. What I'm saying is, it is because it's Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that Amazon brought the awareness as if it was a different company that may not have brought the awareness, but there were a couple of issues there. It wasn't even just the fact that it was Amazon. I think, like you said, if anything, Donald Trump and the Republican tax cuts have brought to the attention of the sort of corporate welfare that's been ongoing. And when you see, Amazon not paying taxes, and then you have these lower level workers that would be some of the ones that could potentially be working there having to pay a lot of taxes. And then you also saw a lot of people that live in that area because it is more of a blue collar industrial area. A lot of the people don't necessarily own the houses around there, so they live in apartments that now their rent was going to be increased, and then you have the fear that they're being pushed out to gentrify that area to then raise the rates and change these apartments into condos and sell them for a lot more money. And so it was pushing people, making them feel uncomfortable. They were going to be pushed out of a place that they lived at for a very long time, which you see when some of these bigger companies like an Amazon do come in and encroach on places like that. And because New York City's economy, as you know, is so much more diverse than even going to some places outside of Northern Virginia, other places in Nashville, other places that might be a little bit more open to it, and they have more space, and it's not going to be encroaching on people's homes and small businesses. I think that you see some people being more receptive to it than other places like New York, and even really in some areas of Los Angeles that are already a very diversified economy that have other places to go for jobs and have other issues that they have beyond just the sheer number of jobs that are coming. And like you said, the fact that they're basically coming in and not paying any kind of taxes. And look, the Democrat governor and the mayor were very big on giving these tax breaks too. So they're not necessarily they were innocent in the sense of all this. They were the ones that were helping make these deals. And I think it's just becoming a bigger awareness now for most people that thanks to Donald Trump and billionaires and people that are getting away without paying taxes, that people are starting to wake up to that. And like you said, they are feeling that they're getting the bad end of the stick there, where they're now going to have to live in apartments that are going up in price, and they're not going to get the benefits of a well-paying job per se that's going to come from Amazon. They're going to be the lower level jobs, and they're going to be struggling and have to move further out too.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's the argument on the one side was $4 billion in lost wages, but it was a $2.8 billion tax giveaway. And that is, a number from an organization called Democracy for America that is in favor of this having happened. So, I'm just saying that's what the source is. So it's in their interests to have that. But in any case, I don't know. I mean, look, somebody's going to say yes, and I think there was I think it was the governor of Maryland was talking about it and saying like, in a way, I understand why the people in New York are upset, but gives Maryland another chance to try. You know, somebody's going to be like, oh, not only are we going to give you tax-free status, we'll give you some extra money too. You know, you want to herd a cattle? What else can we give you? How can we sweeten the pot? I don't know. I mean, I see the argument all across the board, and to sort of what you were talking about, you know, for businesses, I think we didn't talk about this last week because we ran out of time. This is the first year that my wife and I are incorporated, and inexplicably, there is some law that is in place that because we're a business, we got to like erase $20,000 worth of income basically, and it pushed us down into a lower tax bracket, and great for me, but I was just like, well, I don't think that should be there. I am going to certainly take advantage of it.
Of course.
But so I am in no means a business. I'm like I'm not even a small business. I'm a micro business. But at the same time, it's clearly like things that I used to write off as an individual, you're not able to write off anymore.
Right.
You know, like any of us in the media, there's like you could write off almost anything, really. You're like, you know, $100 gift card to AMC. Yep. AMC movie theaters, obviously, not the cable channel. Although you could write that off too. You can write off
Write off
cable.
your
You can write off everything.
Cable bill, your phone
And as an
bill.
individual, you can't anymore.
That's why I'm going to hate tax season this year. I'm going to owe a lot.
That's why you need to get incorporated, son.
I know, but you know, that's the thing is, and that's what people are going to find out is because you're incorporated, you can write off a lot more of things that you couldn't do as an individual, and then the tax rate is lower as a corporation as an individual as well for the same income. So yes, it's definitely it's going to be interesting for me, and I'm going to be crying a lot this year. But
Do you think President Sanders is going to make me pay back that $20,000, Tamara?
President Sanders
With interest.
will.
Not Sarah Sanders. Let me be more specific. President Bernie Sanders.
I do think that every time I hear a scenario of
me
President
too. I
Sanders.
keep in the back. I'm like, ooh, gives me chills.
Well, I have to think about which one I'd rather vote for. I'll get back to you. Anyway, finish your thought.
I think that what would he have you do with that $20,000? I think he would that you would be asked to put that towards your own health care. I'm not sure.
Yep.
That's right. Oh, let me give the conservative rebuttal to that, which would be buy another house in Vermont. It's funny because it's like you'd think like when they say he has 3 houses, you'd think like, oh, what does he have? Like a villa in Spain. he has a place that they live in Washington D.C. because he's a senator. He has like the house that he always had, and then he has like a vacation home in Vermont. I'm like, well, I don't think he's really spent. I don't think it's not the way it sounds.
It's
when you
not
say,
that
oh, he has
lavish.
3 houses. It's like, yeah, okay. So they probably cost less than I don't know, like one of Hillary's houses. I'm not even going to talk about President Trump.
Or my apartment.
Or the apartment. I was going to say, or someone with one house out here
In California.
One 2-bedroom. House.
Speaking of Bernie, though, he apparently is not in a rush to release his tax returns. But I think as we've learned, presidential candidates don't have to release their tax returns. Like, why would he at this point?
Right.
Why would anyone ever release them again?
Right. If there's anything in there that could be even remotely seen as controversial, why would they even bother now?
Yeah, I mean, isn't he an NRA member? So he probably because he's very pro gun rights because that's just the kind of state Vermont is.
Right.
So I don't know if he's an NRA member, but maybe there's like a whoopsie automatic renewal. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, so he doesn't want us to have his taxes at this point. Like I was saying, like Tamara, should anyone ever show us their taxes ever again?
I mean, I guess they don't have to. That's why Republicans need to hold Trump accountable for these things that he is setting a precedent for. You know, that's just, you're fine with it with him, but then you're not going to be fine with that when the next Democrat does this exact same thing, just like we were talking about with the emergency declaration. So this whole my team versus your team thing is going to screw each of us over in the end.
Right, because it goes back to even like the Supreme Court when Mitch McConnell did the nuclear option. It's like, well, now Democrats going to do the same for any future Supreme Court appointees and things like that. And I've heard the rumors that some states want to actually put it on their ballot to force, if you're going to run in that state, you need to have your tax return to be able to be on the ballot. I don't know how that would pass.
I think we should put it into federal law.
But
I
think
think the president has to.
I think that should be a future thing that people have to look into. It was always sort of voluntary, but it became a tradition that everybody always just adhered to. And like you said, now Trump is ending those type of traditions, and now you go back and like you said, make it a law to say if you're going to run for a certain level of office to be transparent, you're going to have to open yourself up. And most people do it anyways. Like the governor will always do it in states and everything to make sure there's no conflict of interest. And so I think it is something that's very important, and it is something that maybe future Congress will need to look into for future presidential candidates for sure.
Well, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was a tweet from President Trump talking about how Spike Lee made a racist speech accepting the Academy Award that he did win.
A racist hit.
It was a racist hit. You're right. And just sort of an interesting rebuttal to that I saw, of all places, from Brit Hume on Fox News. It was like, no, the speech wasn't racist or even particularly anti-Trump. I think it's just so reflexive that, when anybody speaks out on anything, he's just like, oh my God, that's so terrible. This movie was about the Klan, so clearly he's speaking about me. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to get bogged down. It's for another show to talk about the Oscars and all that. But is there a chance, Tamara, that President Trump is just hypersensitive?
I say there's a 100% chance that he does not know what the word racist means. That's an underlying theme since he took office. And that's why he thinks he can say the things that he does, and his supporters excuse the way he, just generalizes people crossing the border and that's, to them, that's not racist because they don't understand what racist rhetoric is, just as he doesn't understand that somebody can say something about a white person and that is not racist. There's a difference between racist and prejudiced, and there's a specific difference that he needs to learn. And Spike Lee wasn't saying, he was encouraging people to mobilize, vote in 2020. That's what he was saying.
Yeah, he's saying being on the right side of things. He's probably telling you, I think indirectly, if he's telling you to vote in 2020, I don't think he's saying vote Trump.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We know what he's saying, but still.
I mean, anyone who saw Black Klansman, the ending has footage of Trump speaking after Charlottesville, and you see some actual terrible footage from Charlottesville. So he is making a point, but it is not a patently anti-Trump statement to say that. It's
not anti-Trump, and it's certainly not racist in any stretch of the imagination. Like, I don't even know how you could not only A to C that, but A to E, F, and G that. Like, how does he even? It just boggles my mind how he has absolutely no concept what the word racist means.
Well, and it's always goes back to being about him too. Of course, always has to go back to him, and it's just like, oh my God, it's so ridiculous. I mean, just like the whole favorite president. I mean, ridiculousness. Yeah, I joke back on Twitter. I was like, you wouldn't even be my favorite president if you were the only one, and you were, he would not even be. So.
That's true. You're not even my favorite president named Trump. There aren't any other ones. Exactly. That's all right. Anyway, we have to leave it there, as they say, because we're out of time. But thank you to everyone in the chat. And thank you to Tamara. Where do people find you?
Hey, I've just put up a new stand-up video, so follow me on YouTube. Hey, Tamara.
Just Hey Tamara, because your Twitter's different.
Underscores and
YouTube. Well, everything's Hey Tamara except for Twitter. I just have to have an underscore after it.
That's just for me, because now I know how to find it. And Scott, how do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter calling Mitch McConnell a hypocrite pretty much every day at SMan80.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Follow the show at Trump Report ABTV. We will be back next Tuesday at 4 Pacific. Maybe talking about some of our Michael Cohen drinking game.
Some good.
We'll
maybe
see you.
Drinking.
Maybe. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.